huge anti-China campaign mounted after secret talks fall, a massive hybrid warfare attack has begun on China following the failure of negotiations between Eastern and Western secret societies, sources close to the negotiations say. Their attack on China is using a combination of bioweapons, propaganda, and economic warfare according to multiple sources. This campaign is being conducted in tandem with an effort to create mass starvation in India and Africa. This is the response of the US corporate government after it failed to find financing of a January 31st international pavements deadline, according to European royal family sources. The attack on China shows many signs of advanced planning. First of all, the new coronavirus hit in China is definitely a bioweapon. Researchers in India have identified HIV insertions in the coronavirus that could only have been put there intentionally. CIA-linked doctors say the insertions were made to fear that virus would be contagious to humans. Meanwhile, Chinese doctors have discovered the coronavirus is designed to attach to lung receptors that are 5 times more common in Asian males than in African or Indo-European males. Asian females also have less than half the amount of these receptors than Asian males. They already knew this was coming. It's this nipple virus. And guess what? Whites are essentially immune because we have the acetyl cholinase inhibitor against the virus. They know it's nipple. The shit is going to hit the fan once people know the mortality rate. The CIA doctor bragged. In case you have any doubts that this attack was planned well in advance, take note of the CNN article trying to pin the blame on China, especially the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The Wuhan biotech company logo is the same as Umbrella biotech company logo from Resident Evil series, our CIA sources note. According to Mozart source, one thing is certain. This virus has been modified and may have all types of pathogens mixed in it. It was released, as we say, accidentally on purpose. This is the last stand for the cable. The world is waking up their lies, manipulations, never-ending wars, and Babylonian money magic, as we have the Zionist cable smokeman sprouting off again. Asian secret society sources have already promised their response will be unpredictable and worse than you can imagine. The Chinese are almost certain to target the regime of Shinzo Abe in Japan, since it has been identified as a subcontractor for this attack on China, according to Japanese military intelligence sources. Although pictures of Abe smiling with Nazi symbols in the background have been scrubbed from the internet, it is well known he's a Nazi. As soon as Abe was put in power, he began building a biowelfare factory disguised as a Kakun Veterinary College. Japanese sources say this was staffed by the supporters of infamous Japanese fascist unit of 731 biowelfare divisions, they note. They also set up shop in Wuhan, according to Japanese underground sources. Nazis, of course, were known for their plan to kill off all non-Aryan race. That is why the attack on China is being carried out along with a plan to create mass starvation in Africa and India. This operation is being run out of bases in Antarctica, where weather modification technology has been used to create rainfall in the deserts of Saudi Arabia, according to CIA sources. This led to huge proliferations in desert locusts. After the rain stopped, the locusts swarmed and moved to Ethiopia and Sudan, where again unnatural rains had created sudden abundance in the desert, allowing the locusts to multiply 20-fold. After this desert dried out again, the locusts began swarming the breadbasket countries of Africa, just as crops were being planted. A similar attack is now approaching India as well. This means mass starvation is looming in the two areas of the world experiencing the greatest population growth. The articles below describe the process, although they don't mention the likely use of weather modification technology as a driver. Sources say the Nazis are using the threat of starvation to try to force the Indians and Africans to cut off their ties with the Chinese. This is part of a massive campaign to demonize and isolate the Chinese, the sources say. This campaign is seen in the incredible and sensationalist fear-mongering campaign in the Western corporate propaganda media. So now let us take a dose of reality. So far, as this blog was about to go public, there have been 7,205 confirmed cases of the virus and 361 fatalities in China. That is about 2% of mortality rate, lower than regular influenza, which has a mortality rate of about 30%. To put that in perspective, in January of 2019, 608,000 people caught regular influenza in China. Meanwhile, in the US, 80,000 people died of influenza in 2018. So, how come there was no panic medical coverage over this much larger pandemics? This headline from the Rothschild-controlled AP says it all. Fears of new virus trigger anti-China sentiment worldwide. The reason, of course, is because this fear campaign is linked to an economic campaign aimed at isolating China. U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross has come right out and said the coronavirus will help the U.S. economy, noting, "It does give business another thing to consider when they go through a review of their supply chain. On top of all the other things, you had SARS, you had the African swine virus there, now you have this. It's another risk factor that people need to take into account. I think it will help to accelerate the return of jobs to North America, some to the US and some to Mexico as well." The campaign against China also involves canceling airline flights into the country and evacuating non-Chinese from China. There are also signs the Americans are getting ready to use their long-standing threat to cut off China's oil. This was seen in an attack against an oil tanker off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. The Chinese have been building up overland pipelines and stocking up on oil with such a scenario in mind. That is why Chinese oil demand has dropped by 20% since the latest hybrid warfare attack on the country began. However, ominously for the Chinese, the reaction of the Russians showed that if push comes to shove, they are going to ally with their fellow Europeans. The Russians have closed their land border with China and stopped train traffic in response to this so-called pandemic. At the same time, the US is ostensibly making massive preparations for war against Russia, but insiders know this is really part of joint Russian-US preparation for war against China. The Chinese are not stupid and know they're being attacked. So what is the Chinese counterattack likely to be like? Previously, senior Chinese told me they have contingency plans that would let them occupy India, the Korean Peninsula, and Southeast Asia, minus Vietnam, in a matter of weeks. Also, they have identified the slave regime of Shinzo Abe in Japan as a weak link. They could easily decapitate his regime with an overnight campaign of assassinations. It is likely that around the world many top Khazarian mafia bosses are suddenly going to start dying. We are also seeing, as predicted, the global collapse of stock and commodities markets. China's stock index, for example, fell 9% on the first day of trading after the Lunar New Year's holiday period. This is a sign that the planned implosion of the global financial system may well be underway. What is disturbing about this latest development is that both the Pentagon and the Asian secret societies have responded to this crisis by cutting off communications with nurture third parties like the White Dragon Society. This total information blackouts are a sign that preparations are underway for warfare. This would be a loss-loss outcome and a disaster for the planet. the WDS has proposed instead a loose-word federation where nation-states keep their traditional independence, but countries work together on issues that affect the entire planet. The P3 Freemason, with 1.5 billion Catholics under its influence, together with 2.3 billion member British Commonwealth, support such a move. Chinese handlers, however, have been pushing for a China-dominated world and have so far refused to participate in meetings aimed at world peace. On a final note, there are also more and more signs that wars are already raging in space and underground. There are multiple reports of unnatural earthquakes around the world.